What's good? What's poppin'? And welcome to the Stay Zealous Podcast with your host, Cam Jones, the one and only. You can't clone me. And thank you to every single one of y'all watching today, no matter if it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you're watching this. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. The community is growing. There's a lot of feedback, and we are just having great conversations from the previous episodes to now. And if you haven't watched the last episodes, please go watch them, like them, share them, subscribe them, all the things, all the above. Do the things with those. We had our first guest, and I appreciate him for being on, so make sure you go view that as well. But we got me. We're back. It's just myself, and we're going to have a great time, some good conversations, and I'm very excited. If you haven't tuned into any of these before, Stay Zealous Podcast is a place where we are creating community, and this community is for us to reach purpose by not only doing what we're passionate about, but to become the most authentic versions of ourselves. And it's my hope that through these conversations, by us being vulnerable, honest, open, transparent, that we are able to become those things and do what we love and do it by being you, because the best version of you is the only version of you that is needed in this world. So love and appreciate all of y'all. But y'all, I'm not gonna lie, it has been a very good week. It has been a very good week. I have felt very fulfilled the past couple weeks of my life, and I've been able to get back on track. Anytime I've gotten to the years and I've set a word of the year or something I really want to get better in, it starts off very great. And then there gets this lull period where I start to lose track and get focused, and it could be the most minor distraction. And that minor distraction just takes me on a loop elsewhere. And one thing that I was journaling today was I feel like I'm at this crossroad. This happens a lot, and I think it may happen to you as well. I've met this crossroad, and at this crossroad was an opportunity to go multiple different ways. I can continue to go straight the way I needed to go, or I could go right and go left and take the biggest detours of all time. I've been playing a lot of COD. I have been playing my Switch and Mario Kart, just things that they're not bad. At the same time, they're not necessary all the time. In moderation, they're good, but in the current moment with the things that I have on my plate, I want to make sure there is a healthy balance between being able to do things that are leisure and I can have fun with, as well as doing things that are necessary for me to continue to grow and are priorities in this season. I hooped. My knee got swollen because back in the day, I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus. So when I do hoop and I'm a slasher, I drive to the basket. When I do play with a lot more power, it causes my knee to swell, so I have to put myself on just a quick little injury reserve for a little bit. But it is better now. But aside from those things, life has been really good, and I've enjoyed all that God has been guiding me into, especially when I met this crossroad. I jumped from the crossroad back into something and then jumped back into it. The crossroad was me going straight or detouring into things like video games or just what could be something that's a little bit more negative, just laziness, because I'm, whatever reason, just don't find motivation, or from something that stemmed a long time in my life, which is just procrastination. And I love waiting to the last minute to do things sometimes. And I don't understand. Maybe it's just the adrenaline rush that I get from doing it last minute, or it's probably just an unhealthy habit that I probably should stop. Both can be true, and both are not necessarily good. But this crossroad that I met, I wanted to ensure that I was in the right place, because when there are a lot of things that I'm wanting to be intentional with this year, there is an expectation I place on myself to fulfill these things and have the drive and choose to do them. And then there's the things that can easily distract me from actually fulfilling those things, which can be Cam's laziness and procrastination, or it could be, which ultimately is distractions, like video games that, again, they're not bad. They're just not necessary. We have to be able to decipher what is necessary and what's not in every single season of our life. And currently, I'm at the point where I'm having to navigate what is necessary and what is not. And I had to take some time to pray. I had to take some time to just sit in those things and really ask myself the question, Cam, where are you going? What are you doing and why you're doing it? And once I was able to ask myself the questions, it was like, boom, light bulb. And I was able to navigate myself back to where I needed to be. So this week, I've been able to jump back in. I'm back into the workout routine. I didn't fall off, but back into the workout routine starting tomorrow. I took a break today. Got to watch the Super Bowl. Great thing overall. We ain't talking about it, but it was cool. I enjoyed it. And really just have been enjoying life. Nothing crazy. Nothing wild. Good high moments, good low moments. Just chill. Very chill. And I think that's a good space for me to be in because I'm not stressing out over random things. I'm not anxious. There is order and a lot of opportunity for more order that will be happening. And I am very excited about that. So aside from life being good, I have really been in a place of trying to understand what current season I'm in. I believe we all go through life through seasons, and we should always take it as seasons, not taking it as something that's going to last forever. If we put something in our brain, in our mindset that is going to last forever, there's a good chance that we are not being optimistic enough, and also we're being too down on ourselves, and we're really not finding a good balance between trying to navigate the season, because it's like cognitively our brain is telling the rest of our body and how we act like, I'm never going to get through this point. I'm never going to fly through this season. All I'm telling myself, or what I should be telling myself, is that I will navigate and I will get through this season, no matter how difficult it is. We will go through trials of any kind. Like, we will go through troubles. We will go through difficult things. How we observe and how we take it is extremely important. What we learn from it, how we navigate it, what our attitude is, the things that we can control will dictate the season we go through. So this past 6 months has been a very difficult season, and there has been a lot of changes, a lot of things that I did not anticipate that were going to happen, and it bred room for me to see myself differently in healthy ways and unhealthy ways. So just to give a little bit of context, over the past 6 months, one of the most difficult things that has happened to me, it was the shutdown of a church location that I was going to. Not the overall church, but just a specific location that I was going to. It was hard to navigate it because it was a little bit more abrupt, and it kind of shattered my mindset of where I was at and the community of people that I was a part of. Now, I'm still friends and connected with a lot of these people, but what happens when friendships and community start to disperse in different ways? This has not been the very first time I've gone through a difficult season like that. It may not even be the last, but I was familiar with the dispersing of people, but I was unfamiliar with the territory in which it happened in. Prior to this, I had been in a season where I had tons of friends, amazing community in the church that I worked for. And whenever the scandal happened in the church that I was a part of, it grunted a lot of people. A lot of people were disbanded and were spread out across different states and all over Texas. And even just maybe some parts of the world. I don't know. Maybe there is. I don't really remember if some people are other parts of the world, but across the nation, people were spread out. And it really brought to this point that I was really talking to Cheyenne about how to navigate friendships and what do friendships look like in each season of your life. So as we navigate each season, are there friendships that in a ministry that I was in college were like, you have friendships for a season, or brotherhood, sisterhood, friendships for a lifetime? What does that look like? It looks like a lot of intentionality that is necessary, but it also looks like, because we have social media, it's easy to essentially fall off because you are still connected with that person, which is mind-blowing, because when I think about my parents and their friendships, they do phone calls, they go out on trips with their friends. because there wasn't any social media, and that's just naturally what they did. Because our generation, Gen Z, millennial, we have social media. It's so much more easier to stay connected with people when you're not in the same vicinity as people. And as cool as that is, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always the best, because sometimes friendships start to dwindle in specific seasons. So years ago, when I was working for the church that I was working for at Hope City, that time frame, there was a lot of friendships that spread out all across the place, and I'm not as close to some of those people. And what I've realized, a lot of that proximity happened because of church, but at the same time, the ones that continue to keep going on, we realize that there's more. What am I trying to say? There's other things that have brought us together, apparently what we've gone through, and you have to navigate a trauma or something that you've gone through healthily, or in a healthy way when you are in it together with somebody else, and make sure the friendship's not built on just pain and hurt, and trying to heal from those things. But a lot that was built on were other things aside from just us being part of church. And that I figured those things out, I've realized that those friendships have continued to been able to connect with those people no matter what season of life. And those are those friendships for a lifetime. But then you do have friendships for a season, that at a season and very specific times of your life, that is what's necessary. So as we talked about before, there are some things that are necessary and some things that are not. I think this almost can apply to friendships as well. In certain seasons, there are friendships that are there for a specific amount of time to help us navigate a place. It doesn't mean we forget the person. We remember what they did, but we also don't discredit the time frame we had with that person. For example, I could move to a completely different state. There's friendships that I had when I lived in Georgia, or that I had when I lived in Louisiana or Central Texas. I'm not discrediting those friendships at all. They were healthy. But again, our community, what's around us, dictates how much we can hang out and what we actually can or cannot do. It was necessary for that season of time, and now it's not as necessary or not as close as what it was before, because there's community and other people around that I have that help me navigate and get through life in this time frame. So to backtrack to what we were essentially talking about before, when I was in that season at Hope City, there was friendships and people that I knew and people that I was connected with that were necessary for that season of life that I needed. And as things go about and change, there are some friendships that are not as viable anymore, and there's some that truly are. And I don't get mad at those people. I don't get frustrated with those people, but I appreciate the time I had with those people. And now what I get to do in the next season of my life is develop even more friendships. And now I get to have friendships in many places. And if you're anything like me, I am the person that is friends with everyone. I want to continue being friends with everyone. If I could be intentional with every single person I meet, one, I want to do that as much as I possibly can. And two, I would just put everyone together and we just have the most amazing conversation or conversations of all time. Because that's what I want to do. I want to be friends with everyone. I don't want to not be friends with everyone. But what I've had to realize is I can't be as close as I want to be with people or certain people in certain seasons of my life, especially if proximity is not always there. So flash forward to now, when it came to that 6-month time frame, it was a difficult change that shifted the way friendships look like. And I had to not only navigate the difficult change of a location shutting down and how I see myself, how I see people, and just grieving the process of something that I deemed as really awesome and it's not actually happening anymore. I had to walk through that, but I also had to learn to walk through that a lot of these friendships are simply going to change. It sucks. I don't necessarily like it because I wish things could truly stay the same way. But that's the difficult part about seasons and how I view it, is that the fact that things can't just be so good for long periods of time makes me realize that like how we navigate life is extremely important. The level of intentionality that we put into each season of our lives, how we grow, how we become the most authentic versions of ourselves, how we view things, how we understand and perceive people and gain perspective is extremely important in every single season of our life. Because friendships will come and go. We will go through difficult seasons, and we will go through amazing time frames and very low moments. But the thing that we have control over, and no matter what happens, is our attitude. Your attitude can dictate the way you view every single season. When I went through what I went through at Hope City and what I viewed, it was hard to see a different lens because my immaturity at that time could only see so much. And I was so worried about all these great things that were going to be dismantled and the hurt from people and the pain that happened. It was a difficult time frame. And I knew friendships were going to change. And growing up as a military kid and having to reminisce friendships changing is a very difficult thing. I grew up in a way where I moved to a place, and whether I'm there for a year, 3 years, or 5 years, there's this little thing in the back of my head that's like, you know, this relationship is only going to last so long. So you got two choices. You can either cherish it and make the most of it, or just walk through pain the whole time. And there were moments where I was like, I'm gonna make the most of this. Like when I was in Florida, I made the most of it. And it was difficult to actually move away from that place after starting there and not really liking it. But there are other times where I didn't take it the wrong way, where I developed some frustration and anger. And I wouldn't say I got to the point of bitterness with people, but I was really frustrated with how friendships were navigated moving forward, because it brings this question of like, well, was this friendship built on anything that was actually going to last? Was it built on a foundation that was, no matter what we go through, that it was going to last? Or were we actually as close as friends as we thought we were going to be? That's a hard place to be for growing up as a military kid. Because I move around so much, I really want to cherish friendships the best way I possibly can. And now that I have a little bit more ownership on where I live, where I move, where I'm going, I view it so much differently now, because I'm not set on my job and life on moving me somewhere else. I have a lot more ownership over that within my free will to navigate some of those things, which means I view relationships differently, because if it moves on, I know it's not a proximity thing. I know it's not me moving to a different state. It's just a matter that we drifted apart. So I want to look through the lens of friendships so differently now. And I try to do my best to look at it in the sense of how Jesus did it. The 12 walked with Jesus, and he was a friend, he was a brother, he was a leader, all these different descriptions of what he was to these disciples. And the fact that he walked with them no matter what shows how much I want to be able to do that with other people as well. Because as a military kid, like you kind of go through all these ups and downs, and the thinking, processing all your thoughts and analyzing everything about what next is going to look like in the next season, trying to meet friends, especially if you're in grade school while you're doing it. It brings up a lot. It brings up a lot of different thoughts that you have over time. And where I have found myself is viewing those relationships differently now in my current season, to make sure I'm not getting lost in all the sauce as I'm talking. I want to make sure I stay on track with a lot of things, because my brain is like, y'all, my brain is a little bit everywhere. I had a protein bar before this, and if we go somewhere, we go somewhere. That's just kind of Holy Spirit's going to lead us today. But especially if you are in grade school, it's sometimes hard to navigate a lot of those different relationships. And so to go back to originally what I was saying, when I was in that difficult season, knowing that friendships, ultimately I see friendships a lot differently now. Not from a place of I need to really cherish it because I only have a limited time, to I view people slightly different when it's not proximity that's bringing us apart. It's the foundation on which we set it on, which makes me realize in this moment, like how important and how practical we have to be when it comes to making friends. It's honestly crazy to me that overall in our lives, we learn in grade school how to build relationships with people. Like naturally, you like that toy, that's what you do. Play the toys together. You like blocks, let's play blocks together. Go outside, you like to play sports, let's play sports. I vividly remember in elementary school when I moved to this school in Central Texas for the very first time, and the way I met friends was literally going to this concrete track outside and running. Like that's all we did. Unfortunately, we didn't have any rims on the basketball goal, which is a crazy concept in elementary school to have basketball goals and not have the rim on it, and you can't actually hoop. When we hoop, we would just hit the square. That I don't know if that's just because the status of what my school was, or if it truly because we messed up as an elementary school and got the rims of the basketball goals taken away. I really don't know. But that's a whole other conversation. But because we didn't have that, if you're not playing on the playground, you were probably running on the track. And the very first day I was there, I got to the track and I ran. Because I was a runner, I played sports. I won my first race. And that's when people are like, oh, this dude's fast. So when we had relays and field day and everything, I actually got picked up to play on these teams. Because your boy was fast, you know what I'm saying? So that is so gross. Because of that, my friendship was predicated on athleticism. Over time, when I got to connect with some of these friends that I built on based on athleticism, there were more things that developed and built the foundation. Video games, when we played basketball together, whether it was just jokes, things we saw on TV shows, like the list grew. But the biggest thing that set the foundation was proximity. The moment I moved away from Central Texas, I'm still connected to a lot of these people now because of Facebook and Instagram and much more and social media. But the reality is I'm not as close to them because of proximity. That's where my mindset was at first. That's what made difficult changes, major changes in my life, hard to navigate. Because I knew I never could just go back to a place, or I didn't really have control of going back into a space. Now in my life that I do have it, and you'll see how this all wraps around. Now in my life that I do, I view and have a little bit more of sometimes a frustration or just a curiosity on how I can build a relationship, be in relationship with this person, through work, through life, and much more, go through difficult seasons, amazing seasons of life, and then get to a point where it is not proximity that separated apart, it was the job. But in the same way, when I was a little kid and we ran that race, that was just the first thing that brought us together, and then more things got added on. So how in the world do we as people now get to a place where proximity is not the issue, but we've built on more things to set the foundation of our friendship, that because we move away from a place and we still live in the same city, that we can't be as close as friends anymore? This is the thing that my brain is so curious about right now in 2025 when it comes to friendships and navigating them. We're not far. Yes, work that brought majority of us together did play a huge factor. But for how I grew up, I'm trying to navigate like, dang, is it on me or is it on them when it comes to friendships? It is a whole concept, and it is extremely difficult for me to actually navigate, and I'm still walking through it. And I still want to be friends with everyone. It's a weird space to be in. So all that to say, I have lost a lot of friendships. And it's not fun losing friendships, because I still care, I still love, and I still want to be around these people. It's just the season that I'm in, and other factors have grown us apart because we don't connect, we don't chat. And it's also wild because we can still have each other's phone numbers, but it doesn't become that much of a priority, which begs a question. in our society, do we put too much emphasis on a job and place to keep up with friendships? And have we gotten too lackadaisical because of social media to actually reach out and stay connected with people because we are somewhat still connected with them through social media? Does that play a role in how we view friendships today? I wonder, and I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And anytime I meet new people, I just really want to know more about their story. I want to know more about y'all. I want to know more about people and learn just who they are and just add it to the catalog of people that I just love and cherish so much. So I can just be friends with every single person. I've also realized that's not realistic at all. And Cheyenne has definitely shown me that. She is more of a person that her circle is a little bit smaller. My circle is like everybody and their mom. And I want to be as open with everyone, but I know I can't do that because as I walk this life with Jesus, I know that he scripturally had an inner circle, Peter, James, and John. And so I want to make sure that I'm connected to the right people and sharing what I need to share in the difficult times in life and the great times in life, but also being able to spread and be vulnerable enough with people so they can get to where they need to go and learn more about me and who I am. I don't want to be a closed book. I also want to make sure I'm being aware of proximity with people, because I am also the type of person that if I get into a good conversation, I'll open up about things. And I don't think that's incoherently bad all the time, but there is a right time and right place. And I learned that a while back when I was navigating Cam's ego, my insecurity, my control, my pride. When I was navigating that, I realized I got to a point where anytime I connected with somebody new, I would share my whole life and all the things that I've done, which ultimately came as me boasting about who I was as a person, even though my heart was not that, which brings up perception is reality, which also brings up that just because you say something doesn't mean every single person catches the intent of it from the receiving end. We have to be very mindful of what we say and how we say it and when to say it and why we should say it. And sometimes people don't have the filter to catch that. And sometimes people don't say anything at all because they're spending too much time thinking about it. There's multiple seasons of my life where I fit both. Sometimes there's a right time to say something, and sometimes there's not. And my ego that I was navigating that season put me in a position when I did connect with people that I would spill so much out that I came over as too much to handle or too much to connect with people. And it's not because my heart was in the wrong place. It's just it came off as borderline boasting to the average person that I would meet because I'm spending more time perception-wise talking about myself than talking about or asking questions to the other person and more about them, and then allowing the conversation to flow naturally. And I think a lot of it had to do with me trying to get to a space that I really wanted to be, a space that I felt called to, a space that I was really passionate about, and I really just wanted to share that with people. And out of my ignorance in the moment, I overshared, and the moments I overshared dictated how that relationship was going to be moving forward. So there have been times where I've met people, done too much, and the relationship didn't really go anywhere. And there has been times where I've met people, had a great conversation, and I didn't keep up my end of the bargain. No matter what space we actually fit in, I ultimately think that there are friendships that are meant for seasons and friendships that are meant for lifetime. And every single one of those friendships, because we are always going to be around people, because just as much as people can be annoying, people are also just that necessary for our lives. And as I navigate where I'm at, I've realized that in a difficult season that I was in about 4 to 5 months ago with the location shutting down, there is people that were in my life at that time that were necessary for me. How intentional I was with those people were on me. And partially some of it was on them, but in the same way, how intentional I was for them is the same thing for them, how intentional they were with me in that season. So earlier today, my wife and I were sitting at the dinner table, And we began to talk about a lot of these friendships. So that's kind of been the overall theme of what I've been talking about or reminiscing over the past couple of days, just friendships and the season in which a life that I feel like God has me in. But we were talking about how, one, we're in a preparation season. We believe that God is preparing us for something. We don't know what it is. I know it's going to be good, but I know that there are some things that he is working on in my heart, and the same for hers, that are necessary to happen so that we get to exactly where we need to be. God's grace is so good that even though we go through difficult seasons of life, and we are promised those things in John 16, that he has already overcome them, and we can take heart, we can remain in confidence knowing that our attitude can be shifted to where we believe and know that we will get through the season and that it is necessary for our growth. So as what we were talking about is this next season of life that we feel that we're stepping into, and how there are going to be some friendships that are going to remain close and some friendships that are potentially going to be not as close as we thought they were going to be. Because of that, let me put it like this. We anticipate what's about to happen, but we also know that things will change as we feel that God is preparing us for a new season of life. Again, I don't even know what this is going to look like and how it's going to be. We just know there's some things in our life personally when it comes to like where we're going to live and things for our kids when it comes to school and just some personal things that we've been navigating on an everyday basis with our life and the difficult season that we went through with that are coming up to this point where God is preparing us for something. And in this preparation, we understand there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some things that we don't need to carry in the next season. And there's going to be things that we are going to need to carry. And in those things that we're carrying, we're actually having to either bring them to God to make whole again and actually learn how to utilize them for the next season that we're in. One in particular is my voice. I've mentioned on other episodes that stepping out to do this has been more difficult than I ever thought and anticipated that it was going to be. And I've really found myself in a season of finding my voice again. I've always been the person that growing up, when anyone would sing a song, I would take over the song and sing it. I always found myself in a position of loving and finding fulfillment in connecting and talking with people. Because your boy can talk. Don't get it twisted. I can talk to a wall. I be talking. But I know that God's placed this voice as a gift, and I want to be able to share it and utilize it to help other people become the most authentic version of themselves doing what they passionately love to do. So knowing that I've been given this voice, what Cam has done because of the difficult season that happened years ago, and even things that have happened recently, I shut off my voice. Trying to navigate friendships, trying to navigate difficult changes, what I did is I shut myself off and peeled back because I overthought like I'm not good enough. Maybe my gift is not really that great. Maybe I'm not meant to be in this space. Maybe this is not the gift that God gave me. And I put myself, and I believe the lie that something that I really felt for so long in my life, because of difficult seasons, I placed myself on the back burner because I was really just trying to navigate where I was at and navigate who I was as a person. Up to this point, from November up to now, with intentional prayer, that my wife and I do the best that we can to make sure we're praying as intentional as we can, and then being practical. And when I mean practical, I'm talking about having vulnerable conversations with my mentor, having vulnerable conversations with Cheyenne, saying out loud, like, I am struggling with how difficult this season is. I don't like blank. I hate blank. going to God and journaling and going to him and actually saying like, I don't like this season. This sucks. The moment I've been able to be as honest and open as I possibly could be, gave more room for me to be fulfilled with healthy things and have enough perspective where my emotions weren't clouding my judgment. I got very, very, very practical with myself. I have more control over things than I think, and not unhealthy control, but actual control over certain things like my attitude and how I gain perspective, how intentional I am with certain things. I have a lot more control than I think. When you think about the concept of free will, if I were to tell you, hey, do a backflip, and I want you to do a backflip, and you say, I don't know, you have the ability to go learn how to do a backflip by just going to YouTube, by finding someone who knows how to do a backflip and just doing that. You have the ability to do that with your free will. Sometimes we don't give ourselves permission with things that take a lot more mental capacity to actually change and shift, like our attitudes. There's a lot more that goes into that context by gaining perspective from people and viewing ourselves a certain way. But I do think that sometimes we don't give ourselves certain permissions to actually accept and change those things, because we've been given strength to do that. I believe that the Holy Spirit will guide us and lead us in the truth. And in that truth, we have the ability to truly believe it and then practically make that change in the context of our life today. So how practical should we be? Very practical with ourselves, and really ask simple questions. Ask questions that are going to help us navigate the season that we're in. And when I navigate difficult friendships, I had to get really practical with myself and ask myself, like, how important was that relationship? Is it important now? Should I be as invested? Am I wasting my time? Was that a friendship that was meant for a certain season? And how important is proximity? Now, there are friends in my life that I keep up with that don't live near me, that I'll have conversations every now and then, and they're very fulfilling. And I also have friendships because of just how work and life goes, which goes into like how important like work is in our society when it comes to setting up friendships and relationships, and how that shifts when we add more to it. And the ones that I've been able to know, like, yes, work brought us together, but we added more to it. Those relationships have been the ones that I've been able to sustain for way longer than I think. But then I just have to have the realization that this is how practical I've been doing myself. I just had to realize that no matter what the season is, that not all friendships are necessary for that time frame, and that it is okay that, yes, we built a foundation because of work or something, and we built more foundation, that it's not necessary for that friendship to be there right now. And that's okay. Yes, we may get social media fatigue and texting fatigue and not connect with a person for so long and want to set something up and we don't. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. We got life, we're doing things, but we want to make sure we're living in context with the people around us, and making sure we're in community with people that are just not based off of just one foundational thing. And I think if we can be practical and do that, then we can navigate a lot of friendships a lot more easily than we think. A lot more easily. But ultimately, going through that difficult season of my life has brought me to a place of really understanding how I need to invest in friendships moving forward. Not cautiously, but practically. The next season of my life that God is preparing us for, He is using those past friendships, using the difficult changes and scenarios. He is utilizing all of those things to put me in position for the next season of life with the next friends that I am and how I navigate each thing. Everything we receive in preparation seasons, which I always think we're in a preparation season for the next thing, it just doesn't always look like just prep. It looks like a smorgasbord of things, and it ultimately ends up being preparation for everything. But every situation that I've been in over the past almost like 2 years of my life, and how practical Shine and I've been praying over just community and what that's going to look like has been preparing us for this next season of life that we're about to step into. And so my biggest encouragement for y'all and ultimately myself is be mindful and understand that every single relationship is not always going to last forever. In the context of the season in which you're around that person versus proximity. Yes, proximity around the person versus not having proximity at all. That's what's going to dictate a lot for each season that you are. And sometimes when you are close to people, even in space, it really just funnels down to how intentional you are. I know we all navigate life. I got 2 kids. It can be a lot. But it just shows how much more intentional I need to be when it comes to community, because that is very important in my life. I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing, 1, for myself, my relationship with God. And then 2nd, my marriage. And then 3rd, my family, my kids, my intermediate family. And then after that, funnels everything else, work, friendships, and much more. I want to make sure as the male of my household that I'm good, my family's good, and we're all set. My marriage is good. We're going on dates, doing all those things. Set that foundation first. Once I get that, I believe the next added thing is community that helps us and keeps us accountable for all the things that are set priorities in our life first. So when you think about yourself, look at your life and ask yourself, all right, if I have a relationship with God, is this prioritized in every way of my life? Am I making sure I'm reading? Am I doing my devotional? Am I spending time in the presence? Am I going to church? Am I part of a church body that's helping me be a part of that? That's the practical when it comes to my relationship with God. Then my family, if you're not in a marriage, okay, that probably moves in a different spot. But if I have a family, what does that look like? What does my intermediate family look like? What does my space look like? And if that's not even the case either, then I funnel everything else. I funnel my relationship with community and people, my friendships. What does that look like? Because again, that helps my accountability for all the other things. And then I look into work and everything else, and I prioritize things as accordingly. That's how practical I've had to get with my life. And I think if we do that, that will allow the order in our lives to be exactly where it needs to be. So in seasons when we go through difficult changes, I can lean on my relationship with God first. Then I can lean on my marriage, which we're probably going through that season together. Even though we're 2 individuals, we're one. So we are technically going through that season together. Then I lean on my family because I have a standard and place to uphold as the male of the household. I want to make sure that my family's good. So I have to help my children navigate the difficult words be difficult. Good Lord. I have to help them navigate the difficult scenario or situation as well, because they, as my kids, they're viewing me navigate it. So I have to make sure they're good. And then through that accountability, through all these different things that I keep myself accountable because those are what I prioritize, I have people then that will keep me accountable as I navigate these things too, that I could be open and vulnerable with in every situation. That can be very difficult when you're not in proximity with people. So as you were hearing everything I'm saying, or what I want y'all to hear is that Cam is trying to navigate the proximity I can have with people and the relationships not being as close as I thought they were going to be when they were prior. And it just shows that we're in different seasons of life. And that can simply go to if you have a marriage or if you have kids or where your job is in the city. A lot of that dictates or what your schedule is. So that's why we truly have to find the essence of community around people that are in similar stages of life as us, and that we really can spend plenty of time, which then answers literally my own question, that why was work and things bringing more proximity, and now that stages look different. Man, dude, like being at different churches, like and being around people not as much can really change how a relationship looks. Like, that's crazy. Man, I'm really am in a preparation season because that really just put me in a place of like, dang, I just have the realization that, man, I'm going to have to just be that much more intentional in this next season of my life with friendships to not just ensure that they last a lifetime. Like, that's shouldn't necessarily be the MO, but really just spending time with people that I can navigate the season of life that I'm in. Because eventually, like, we'll get old. When we get old, like, the friendships are not going to last, but we're going to be in positions of with our kids and grandkids and being in that season. But man, how beautiful would it be to still have friendships that last a lifetime? Man, I don't think I ever want to substitute that. I don't want to substitute I don't really want to substitute a season if I have control over, or I guess the free will to not change it. Why would I want to do that? Have I really been setting myself up for a position of more difficulties in friendship? Not because of when I was a kid, but like because of seasons, because of maybe I wasn't as intentional as I could have been. I got some reflection to do, y'all. We all do. There's something in my eye. I don't know what it is. It's probably an eyelash. But yeah, man, dude. Relationships are difficult to navigate. They're very difficult to navigate. To think that relationships can be preparation, but at the same time, they can be what's the right word I'm looking for? They can be, I guess necessary would be the right word again. They can be, they are necessary for the season that we're in, which ultimately helps us to prepare for the more, especially if we miss the mark. So I think I didn't even get to this, but when my wife and I, when Shine and I were at the dinner table, we talked about the intentionality. We talked about when we are dismantling from a lot of these relationships that could potentially happen in any season of our life, whether we move or go somewhere else. Like, whenever we do, we know that there are relationships in certain seasons. The level of intentionality that we have completely shifts when we go to the next place. And ultimately, it is preparation, because when we get to the next season of our life, it shows what we should do to ensure these relationships stay longer. And sometimes we navigate times with people where, like, let's say you had a bad breakup with a friend, or y'all fall out, and the relationship was like really rocky and you're not as close to them as much anymore. That should help you in your next relationship with the person on how to ultimately deal with people, because dealing with people are difficult, but also we need people. It's a weird tension. It's a really weird tension. So, I don't know. I think I really am still learning how to be in relationship with people, knowing that they may not last the whole season, or I may not be as close with them forever, but I still can cherish the relationship during and even after. And this really just comes from just a deep place of, because I moved around so much, I never wanted to lose friendships. So I try to stay as close with people as I possibly can. And when things dismantle, that's when I kind of, I go through a moment of grief because I lost a friendship. I don't like that. Man. Yeah. Relationships can be very difficult. I'm still navigating. I'm still trying to figure a lot of these things out. And practically, which has been a big portion of my life recently, is just practical ministry. So practically trying to learn how to connect, how to do friendships well in the Bible and how to be friends with people really well and what that looks like. And I don't think we're never given a perfect formula. I don't think we should strive for finding a perfect formula. I just think we should strive to love people extremely well. And what does that look like practically in the season that we look like? Like, what does it look like practically in the season? And I do think Jesus showed us by his navigation that it did take proximity, but the proximity wasn't just navigated on a thing that can easily fade. You can leave your job, so technically that relationship can be severed and fade because it's built on a foundation that is really, really rocky. But something like, which I would hope, a relationship with Jesus, if it's built on something like that, I would hope that it can last a lifetime. But what I've realized with people is that that's not always the case. And that's where my brain is really trying to hone in on, like, how could that be the case? You know how easy it is to just pick up the phone and call somebody or shoot them a text and set up a time to go connect with them once a month or once every couple months, or once every 3 months, and really just bask in and have such a fulfilling conversation. I would just imagine if you could do that with every single person you know, we could get a lot done. We could get a lot done. I think relationships are breeding grounds for connections and opportunities and more, just more. Which brings me to a verse that I want to read. So one thing that's been sitting on my brain recently, and this connects with all friendships and difficult seasons and navigating all these, has been the gifts that we've been given and how we utilize them and how intentional we are with people. So in Exodus 36, I literally just had it. So Moses has been commanded to build the tabernacle. So in verse 1, it says, the Lord has gifted Bezalel, Oholiab, the other skilled craftsmen with wisdom and the ability to perform any task involved in building the sanctuary. Let them construct and furnish a tabernacle just as the Lord commanded. So this grouping of people, Bezalel, Oholiab, have been given special gifts to help furnish and build and perform tasks within. They've been given gifts. They've been given gifts and ability that we all have been given. Then in verse 2, so Moses summoned Bezalel and Oholiab and all the others who were specially gifted by the Lord and were eager to get to work. Moses gave them materials donated by the people of Israel as sacred offerings for the completion of the sanctuary. But the people continued to bring additional gifts each morning. Finally, the craftsmen who were working on the sanctuary left their work, and they went to Moses and reported, the people have given more than enough materials to complete the job the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses gave the command, and this message was sent throughout the camp. Men and women, don't prepare any more gifts for the sanctuary. We have enough, so the people stopped bringing their sacred offerings. Their contributions were more than enough to complete the whole project. This verse, y'all, just recently blew my mind, and it's something I've read plenty of times, but we all have been given a gift, and the gift is necessary. And so each season of our life, I truly think that we bring something to the table. And it's necessary for us all to utilize it, and it's necessary for us to be there. It's cool that in the scripture, the context of community for this sense and the context of building the sanctuary and building up in the things in the tabernacle, building for Moses at this time was based on these gifts and things and people that were eager to work and do it. At the time, that was the community. That's the people around him. That's what Moses had and who was around. And even the people providing more sacred offerings were providing so that this thing can continue to grow. I think this is a beautiful depiction, if we view it in this way, of what community can truly look like, especially if we look in Acts, that people were so interconnected that everyone just brought everything that was necessary for us to continue with life. That's what friendships and good friendships can truly look like in each season of our life. And one thing that my wife and I were talking about and navigating is what has that look like for months and months and years of our life. It was like, what does that true community look like for us living in a city that is, well, we lived in it before, but in a city that is a little bit brand new to us for this season of our life. So what does that community look like for us? And as we've been able to navigate and pray intentionally on it, we've seen God taking some strides in our life right now to bring that together with a lot of people. And we're excited to see what it's going to become. And I truly think it can be like what we see in the book of Acts and like what we see here. Yes, this verse is talking about them having specialties that helped in the continuation of building. But I think it just shows that, man, in the context of people around, no matter if you're leading a group of people, God will provide the people around you that's necessary for the season that you're in. Yes, there may be friendships for a season, but they're necessary for you as a person. Yes, may God place you in a space that you're trying to navigate, and you can pray so intentionally, and God will bring the right people around you to fulfill what's necessary according to his will. So for Moses, Bezalel and Aholiab were necessary, and the people that were contributing offerings were also necessary for the completion of this project. For every season that we're in, as God helps us prepare us in every single season of our life, I believe it is through God, by God, through people that he utilizes to help us navigate and get closer to where he is taking us, that brings us closer to ultimately his kingdom to then disciple more people. Ministry happens in the context of relationship. Work happens in the context of relationships. Seasons happen in the context of relationships, which ultimately are friendships. Everything happens in the context. And no matter if it is for a very specific season, 6 months, a year, 2 days, a moment, a few moments, the friendships are necessary. So you may lose some along the way. That doesn't mean they weren't necessary. That doesn't mean you can't forgive them. That doesn't mean you just forget about them. You cherish that they're there, and you appreciate that they're there, and know that in the difficult seasons of life, there will be people there for you to connect with, especially if we're intentional about it. In the great moments, there will be people there that we can be open and share great things. And no matter what season of life you're in, there's always going to be people around. We just have to really learn how to navigate and connect with people practically. So grade school did teach us how to build friendships based on random things. And now we have to take that in life and get to the point of actually learning how to make friends again. And making sure that these friendships are not just based on only similarities, but differences as well. And things that they will bring to the table that will help us navigate the next season of our life. And in the same way as we walk and as we go through preparation seasons for the next season or the calling or the thing that you really want to do, the thing that you're passionate about, if you really want to open a business, if you really want to be a fashion designer, if you really want to be a teacher, the way you're going to get there is going to be through the context of relationships. And those contexts of relationships and friendships may be for that season and that time frame. That doesn't mean that it's not bad. And it also doesn't mean we have to think like how Cam thinks that the world may be over because we don't get to keep that relationship. But how we view it is that God places people in our lives for certain times, for certain reasons, and they all will build off of each other to help us become more like him and become closer and closer to the true, authentic version of ourselves, which truly found in the identity of Christ. So ultimately, I think we should have the mindset of understanding and perspective as we navigate friendships. They will be a lot, but they will be easier to navigate, understanding that we have the ability to control our attitude as we navigate it, and that they're not necessarily meant to be there forever, especially if we fit in the side that I fit in. But man, do I have a lot more to think about? Has this preparation season been so good? Absolutely. And I also think it's bred a lot of room for trying to figure out who I am as a person. But y'all, I think that's it for me tonight. I'm about to go to bed. I got a workout tomorrow. Got a good old week. Got some cool things that are going to be happening as well. But I really do appreciate y'all rocking with me into this episode as well. 5 episodes. I'm excited. We got more guests on the way, more amazing conversations. I can't wait for us to see what goes on. But thank you for listening to my yap/TED Talk for today over friendships and just navigating difficult seasons. We're still figuring this thing out, but I hope together we can learn and grow and that you took something away from this. And so I appreciate every single one of y'all. I love y'all so much. Please be sure to tune into all the other episodes as well. And always, always, always stay zealous. Bye.